Hello, I'm here to talk yet again about playing late 70s RuneQuest, and I'm not quite sure how to explain why. It seems to be my way of reflecting upon and celebrating the life of Greg Stafford. I'm not quite sure why it's taken this particular route, but it has. For those of you who've paid attention, I have been, for the last 2 years, been working up and playing pretty extensively in an original setting using those rules. The original publications of RuneQuest presented a lot about Stafford's setting of Glorantha, but also provided a very easily understandable method for arriving at your own ancient world pantheon and effectively, mythological fantasy setting. And I have been doing that. As some of you know, it also really focuses on the adolescent and unskilled qualities of beginning RuneQuest characters and making that a feature rather than a possible bug. And anyway, it's real dark, as it turns out. Super dark. One of the most evil kind of circumstances I think that I've ever developed for any role-playing game experience. Okay, but that's not what I'm doing now. I'm doing something else. A few weeks ago, I was planning on heading over to SpelensHus for a Tuesday night game session, and I really didn't find myself in a mode of wanting to do one of the odder or offbeat systems that we'd been playing recently. There had been some talk about traditional play and what it means among people there, and I said, well, let's do some of that. I've already done that a bit with the Whispering Vault, in particular, with great success. Well, I was thinking, let's really hit it, because, for example, a person who's been coming to SpelensHus pretty regularly, whose name is Helma, and been interested in being introduced to role playing, well, she's been introduced via Free Market and Spione, which she liked very much, but I was also thinking, it's kind of time for her to, play proper game, if you will. Where's the elves? How do I roll a hit? That sort of thing. And so I decided, let's go ahead and do something of that kind. I cast about through my shelves. I've only got about 80 such games easily to choose among. And I was thinking in terms of ease, and I was thinking, well, that RuneQuest setting that I had worked up already and the way that I and others have sort of managed to conceive of it beginning, for one thing, it's really heavy in terms of its content. And for another, it would have been a fair amount of prep on my part. I'm sort of taking that really seriously, and it doesn't really have the sort of spunky, adventurous, what are we off to do, and what's the monster behind this corner sort of feel to it that I was kind of looking for. And I was running low on time, and feeling a little. It wasn't gelling in my head. I wasn't grabbing something off the shelf. There's plenty that I could have, and who knows, one of them might have struck me. And if one had, I would have grabbed it and gone. Well, I said, all right. I just can't seem to get this RuneQuest-y thing out of my head. Let's grab the basic book, and let's not be profound. Let's not introduce Glorantha. Let's not use this really heavy-duty, grim stuff that I've been working up. I hit the internet, grabbed a few adventurous-looking characters, and found a map, and looked around and scratched my head and said, well, maybe this is just going to be a sessions one-off. We're going to have a monster fight, and what are we going to do? And I made up some RuneQuest characters using those rules, and this time I didn't customize it by setting like I did before with a fully worked out skill list that would reflect that setting. No, I said, screw it. We'll just use characteristic times 5 rolls for anything that's character appropriate that's not a skill, and we'll carry on from there. And if there's listed skills or things like the listed skills that they try to do, we'll just give them, base 10% plus their characteristic bonuses. Well, let's put them up there. Let's use the advanced rules in the back very loosely, which means we're going to be running around with, skills from 35 to 55 or so percent. And I whipped up 6 characters, mostly just based off the sketches that I had found on the internet. And so some ideas started to come together about what the setting was. The map that I found has a cool split through the continent, which they look like they were used to be on the same level, but there's been some sort of cataclysm which has created a highland and a lowland out of them with a really distinctive set of cliffs that runs all the way through. So it looks like the land was somehow, broken. And of course, there you go. I mean, it's all right. There's the before times and there's the now times. And there must have been the old gods in the old ways, and there must be the new gods in the new ways. And so this is all very RuneQuest-y. I can do that. And so I just sort of started spitballing a couple of things, looked at the configuration of the continents and said, okay, well, let's get some people from here, and they're traveling around up here, and they're looking for stuff about the old gods. Good enough. Came up with some really superficial generalizations for, establishing some name stuff. It immediately became clear to me, which of the characters were from the southern lands and which ones were from the northern lands. So it's gelling in my head. Come up with some fairly evocative but not particularly identifiable, fantasy character names. Started thinking about, a foe. Well, I arrived and I had 6 characters, but I had 2 players. I had Nate and Helma. And Nate has been playing with me at SpelensHus as long as I've been going there. And Helma has been, as I mentioned before, played with me in these other games. And they're both pretty fired up. And they grab 2 characters without hesitating. And I explain, a little bit of what I just told you. The idea being that the religions and the cultures are very earthy, very complicated, sprawling pantheon of gods and godlings, each with complicated genealogies and sort of soap opera-ish stuff going on. So you've kind of got a big old Greek, Egyptian, Persian sprawl of stuff, and I named a couple that I had put on their sheets. I had thought a little bit about the rune situation, and I was like, okay, well, chaos is not a big deal. Ever since the world got broken, chaos has been part of the world, and not only that, it's not that bad. Maybe in the south they sort of marginalize people with chaotic features, and maybe in the north they sort of normalize them, but it's not really all that different. It's a piece of reality. In fact, let's have all the gods be earthy. Let's have everything be concrete. So every god has to have a form rune. Man, beast, plant, and chaos and spirit. And I was looking at the Dragon Newt one, and I was like, well, I need something like that. And you're talking to me, and I quickly said, okay, half snakes. The other race is, people with some snaky characteristics. Not like walking snakes, but people who are just a little snaky, and they're a type of person in this setting. Okay, great. So serpent, so any god has to have at least one of the form runes. In other words, the gods are of the world. I do like the Gloranthan thing that they're somewhat separated, that the real god time is past. So you're not going to see a god walking around. But I'm also thinking very much the ancient Greek myth thing, where you can run into someone who is very much a manifestation of the god. And I'm like, okay, let's keep things like that. That'll be fine. Now that's different from the old gods, who are all gone and sort of culturally erased before the big cataclysm, is, the before times. And, then I said, oh, well, that makes sense. Those gods are going to be abstract. They're going to be mathematical. They're going to be, enlightened in the sense of perceiving the world. They're going to be Platonic, right? They're principles, and the real world only sort of badly approaches them. Okay, I get it. Those are the old ones. Yeah, that's scary.